In 1974, the Magnavox Odyssey dropped onto the market, making it the first ever home console, allowing people to play digital games on their television. And with fantastic games such as table tennis, and other ones probably, but mostly just table tennis, it was revolutionary. However, this device only made its way into the homes of 350,000 folks around the world, but it paved the way for every other home console, including the highly popular Atari 2600. During this time, an up-and-coming former playing card company was creating massively popular arcade games that redefined the culture of gaming. Wanting to distribute their games directly to the homes of Japan, Nintendo created their first home console, and with the experience of distributing the Magnavox, the Family Computer, or Famicom, was a massive success in 1983. On top of that, with a revamped version for a worldwide release, the NES in 1985 and 1986 destroyed every record and ended the video game crash of '83. Plenty of games sold very well, but one stood out above the rest. Jumping his way to the top, Mario and his brother Luigi Mario became worldwide sensations, leading to more sequels, merchandising, and of course, a live-action Hollywood blockbuster. But I'm sure most people who know anything about this movie knows that it takes the crown for the first worldwide theatrical release of a film that adapts its identity from a video game. This horrible abomination from 1993 cemented itself into history, whether we like it or not. And we better not. However, if we start peeling back the layers of this feat, we start to see more of what actually led up to this moment. There's the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, which began airing 4 years before the movie's release in 1989. It was a live-action animated hybrid show that has been memed to no end.
Holy cannoli, kids, I'm Mario, and I'm telling you, if you're not watching the Super Mario Bros. Super Show,
you go to hell before you die.
Peel back another and you'll find the true first video game films. A pair of movies that were released in Japan on the exact same day, June 20th, 1986. Those being Running Boy Star Soldier no Himitsu, based on Star Soldier, and Super Mario Bros., The Great Mission to Rescue Princess Peach, based on the original Super Mario Bros., and opening only weeks after the original release of Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. A lot of Mario, right? Well, too bad, Mr. Mustache Magoo. If we peel back our last layer, it shows us that the original adaptation from motherboard to film reel is the Hanna-Barbera Pac-Man show dating all the way back to 1982, which I may or may not have already made a very mediocre video on. This video isn't supposed to be a history lesson, I just think that these trivia facts are kinda neat. What this video is supposed to be is a fun little essay on video game, film, and television adaptations. Hi, I'm editing right now, and I just want to pop in real quick and say, oops, this video is supposed to be out like 3 weeks ago. No, I just got carried away playing Fallout and writing my next video, which is probably going to be my biggest video of all time. Anybody here from the Steven Universe video? Expect something like that. This mystery video is going to be a pretty big one, so stay tuned. Anyway, back to it. I'm going to shout out the Burbank twins, Eddie and Tony, because they made a video based on this a while back around the time that The Last of Us show came out. I'm going to keep this video as separate as I can from that one, just because I don't want to leech and then regurgitate all that stuff in a shittier format. But I like video games and TV and movies, and I want to talk about them all at the same time. Go check out that video if you want to hear more about these projects on screen and a different perspective on this topic. Now, for a little bit of audience participation. Go ahead and read this line with me. But what's the end goal of this video? Wow, thank you so much for asking. And you better have asked. It's to obtain the ability to look super smart by knowing what goes into a good video game adaptation and being able to concretely determine multiple factors that go into each piece of non-video game video media. No, that wasn't a stroke, that was a real sentence I wrote for this video. Okay, read this line. And for real this time, don't make me look like an idiot. How can you take something so subjective and make it into the objective truth? Okay, yeah, no, just jump into the real heavy-hitting questions, I guess. I can't, but I can get pretty close. And we're gonna boil that down to factors and statistics. There will also be a big complicated graph in this video that we'll use. Basically, I'm taking all the fun, feely parts of art and removing them. On to the next part. Over the past 40 years, studios have made so many adaptations, and most of them are not that good. It was known as a bit of a curse, with some of the earliest examples like the Zelda shows, Street Fighter, Tomb Raider, most of the Resident Evil stuff, and like every Uwe movie. Oh my god. This was mostly for movies because plenty of the shows that came out were mostly okay, if not even pretty good. You know, Pokemon and Digimon kinda in the 90s. Sonic had a bunch of shows. The Street Fighter show was alright. Rayman, Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures. That's right, the Pac is back. Back from what though? Because like the Pac-Man games weren't entirely dead at this point, so I'd assume they'd mean in show form. But I don't really think kids watching Disney XD would remember the original that follows Pac-Man as a middle-aged military father thwarting a humanoid man trying to steal all their orbs. Pac-Man. And lest we not forget the peak of all art, Donkey Kong Country, everybody. Give it up. Give a round of applause.
Once I was the ape of the hour, they think I'm a coward.
However, that movie curse was seemingly lifted with the release of Detective Pikachu, a live-action Pokemon movie starring Ryan Reynolds in the titular role. It wasn't amazing, the story felt pretty safe, but visually it provides this really cool look at how Pokemon would probably be like in real life. That and Pikachu says mild swear words. I was very amused by this as a budding teen, and looking back on it now, they should have gone further. Come on, let him say the big boy words.
You're in the shit now, mustache! Tell me where your fucking boss is!
More and more well-made films and shows kept releasing, but now my tiny little brain doesn't know what to do with them. We have all these shows and movies, but they're all strewn about with no rhyme or reason. It's all chaos. So how about a little order? I'm creating a graph. It's graph time. Alright, time for the good stuff. Breaking down the key components on what makes good and bad video game movies and shows. I joked about it being complicated and boring, but it's actually pretty simple. We need to answer two questions. How good is it on its own, and how well has it been adapted from its source? So if we have two spectrums that we need to combine into a single graph, it's a political compass. Huh. I'm just gonna guess this is an omen for what's to come. Ah yes. Opinionated statistics. Yeah, there's no way around this when it comes to talking about things being good or bad. You have to have opinions to make this work. I really thought I could break it down to math and science, but in the end we're still talking about art, you know? Since we have 4 quadrants in our graph, we need to label them. And what better of a way to do that than to choose the respective piece of media that I think fits them best. Starting with quadrant 1, bad media and good adaptation. I think the crowning champion of this has gotta be the Mortal Kombat movie from the 90s. It hits the perfect, it's so bad it's good sweet spot, and it brings a bunch of characters that show off their in-game personalities super well. Most importantly, it takes the series that's known for its goofy, over-the-top gore, violence, and straight-up weird mechanics, and brings them together into one movie. It just sucks that it's a little cheap and a little poorly written. Never mind, I take it back, it's the best movie ever. Quadrant 2 is good media and good adaptation. For this, I went with Arcane. You could also probably slot The Last of Us here, but I don't wanna, Eddie, Tony, please don't sue me. Arcane is a fantastic show on its own. The characters are fantastic, the story, the world, the dynamics, not to mention how beautiful it looks. It's got everything a good show needs. That part is very clear. But this show really raised the bar when it comes to video game adaptations, and strikes a near perfect balance to what I think a good adaptation in general should be. And that's because it both respects and shows off the original media in a way that's great for both fans of League and newcomers who don't know anything about it, and it breaks and molds the source to allow for a more creative and satisfying experience. A fantastic example of this quality of adaptation would be the game Hades, and I guess subsequently Hades 2. Greek mythology is baked completely into every aspect of those games, and yet they make choices that not only give the game a sense of originality, but give certain characters and settings a whole new breath of life. And Arcane is just like that. It's fantastic. I put it off long enough, so please, please, please stop making the same mistake I did. Go give it a watch. Quadrant 3, good media and minimal/bad adaptation. This one's probably gonna get me in the most trouble. I'm choosing the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Look, it's a good movie, and there was a lot of passion and care that went into it. But in terms of adapting the Sonic franchise, they took a box filled to the brim with characters and worlds and lore, and just grabbed out the main good guy and the main bad guy. That's why my adaptation axis has the term minimal as opposed to just plain bad. Because this isn't really a Sonic franchise movie, more so a fish out of water movie that Sonic is in. Still, it's a great time, and the second one does do a lot better to kind of be a bit more encompassing. This category is probably the hardest one to find examples of, so I just had to make a decision. In our final quadrant is the worst of the worst. Bad media that also adapts its source horribly. A familiar title rings that bell pretty perfectly. It's the original Super Mario Bros. Movie. I don't have to talk about this one for long because at this point it's like beating a dead horse. Oh man, though, is that horse fucking rancid. None of the characters are good. I mean, look at what they did to Bowser. Look at what they did to the Goombas. Goomba! The stars of this film reportedly drank throughout the filming of the movie just to get themselves through it. The script went through hell, they went completely over budget, and allegedly someone almost died of electrocution. And for what? This? Even for the 90s, it looks like shit. So yeah, the first big video game movie was also one of the absolute worst. Thank God the new one was just okay. And animated. Man, Nintendo really needs to stay away from live action. God damn! Now that we have our graph with our 4 extremes placed, it's time to put it to the test with some examples. In comparison to the original, Mortal Kombat 2021 is not quite as charming or silly as it really should be. The MK universe is at its worst when it takes itself too seriously, and that's exactly what this movie did. It just slings references to the games and adds a billion characters that they try to cut little slivers off of their personality pie for. It's just not that good of a movie. But it does do an okay job at adapting the source. Well, you know, aside from this Wattpad level main character, most of the characters just aren't at their fullest potential, like they're almost watered down in a way. Liu Kang and Kung Lao are incredibly boring.
Shang Tsung is probably one of the worst examples. The way he was written and acted in the original 95 movie is just so over the top and fun, but in the new one it's just super cookie cutter and really boring.
Raiden and Sub-Zero are whatever. Sonya's fine, but without Johnny to bounce off of, she has to be written super strongly, and, well, she's not in this film, so yikes. Jax is solid, Scorpion's pretty good, but the best character in this movie by far is Kano, and the reason for that is because he isn't taking things too seriously. He's over the top, he's having fun, and that's exactly what this film needs. It just needs a little bit of life in its lungs. Also, side note, the music is way too generic for a Mortal Kombat film. This score should be going insane, but it really only gets hyped for a couple of moments. Overall, I'd put it about here on the graph. I wanted to talk about Captain Laserhawk, but it doesn't really fit super well. It's a video game show, but it's not necessarily a typical adaptation. You know, it's got a Far Cry world and characters, somebody from Splinter Cell and the Rabbids show up, and an Assassin's Creed frog, and Rayman is there. He's fun. The only 2 things I knew before going into the show is the poster, and one shot that I think Saberspark posted on his YouTube community page of Rayman eating sushi off a naked cowgirl. Yeah, it's pretty safe to say I put this one on the back burner for a little bit. It was pretty alright, honestly. It was kind of short and a little too grimly unsatisfying for my taste. If you guys want, I can go in depth on this show in a future video, but for now I'll just kind of talk about how I'd put one of these not quite adaptation shows on the graph. The main things to look at are what they've incorporated from the games, see how much they really add to the plot, and if they're faithful or transformative in a way that respects their worlds. For this, since the games do play into the overall world building and plot, but could easily be replaced with generic versions of what's inserted, you know, human versus non-human characters, cyberpunk world, etc., I'd probably put it about here on the adaptation axis. I do really like that they don't just push one specific franchise in your face. Like, Ubisoft is basically an Assassin's Creed factory now, so it's nice that this show isn't just chock full of that. You know what simultaneously does and doesn't do this? The Assassin's Creed movie. It sucks. Assassin's Creed as a franchise has so much going for it that would give it a leg up with an adaptation. It's already such a cinematic game, so getting nice shots of the cities and having a focus on the story shouldn't have been difficult to bring into this movie. It's based on historical events, which is a big topic that movies and shows often cover, and it's got built-in action and suspense sequence that makes sense in both game and film scenarios. Here's the thing though. It almost feels like the people who made this have never played an Assassin's Creed game. Here, I'll show you kinda how I know. The basic back of the book rundown for the Assassin's Creed series is as follows. A descendant of an old group of assassins relives the memories of those in the past to find artifacts and solve problems in the present. That is the most bare-bones sentence I can make that still sums up all of it decently well. The big issue with them taking a concept like this and running with it lies in the fact that while as a series, this may hold up, each individual game, however, doesn't really tackle this all that much. The main focus of each game is on the actual assassins and the story of the past, with little sections outside of the Animus sprinkled in. That's not how this movie is formatted though. Most of the movie takes place in the present-day lab, with bits of the past popping up every once in a while. This leads to the assassin characters being planks of wood. There is no personality at all. And that isn't really in the spirit of the games. Not only that, but the parts of the franchise that stick out to me the most, the parkour and the stealth, are barely in this movie. The stealth exists for entrances only, the characters will wait in the shadow before they appear for a big generic action sequence. And as for the parkour, it's not fantastic due to the hyperactive kids content creator levels of editing, and all of this damn fog. I can't see anything. What is this, the bus map from Black Ops 2 Zombies? Also, nobody talks like a normal person in this movie for even a fucking second. God, it's so bad. I don't know, put it there, sure. Listen, I don't know. This franchise would probably do better in like a series format, just because you can then focus on both sides of it in like a better pace, but just get rid of the movie, please. It's so bad. And finally, speaking of a series format, the show that kicked this whole video process off. Fallout. Amazon and Bethesda really cooked with this one. I saw this on in the living room when my roommate was watching it, and I didn't really think much about it, but I paused and watched for just a little bit thinking, let me see if I can feel it. And then the end of episode 2 hit, and it started playing I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire by the Ink Spots. And from then on, I knew I had to watch the entire show. It nailed the tone, the music, it showed so many different aspects of the series. As far as adaptations go, this one was phenomenally done. I love all the different character perspectives it takes and all the references to the games while also being incredibly casual friendly. One of the most important things I've heard from people who watched it is that it's a good show for the people who haven't played Fallout, and a great show for the people who have. Looking at it as far as quality of media, while still good, it had a couple of hiccups, mostly just in the pacing and the world, kinda. It was just weird to see a character in one place and then have them in the next scene in a place that should have taken them way longer to get to. If you know what I mean, think about Game of Thrones where characters would take X amount of, episodes to make it from one place to another. In this show, they just bounce from place to place. It's a little nitpicky, but it makes the world feel a little small and almost obsolete. Also, the ending was really quick. Since this is a newer show, I'll go a little light on the spoilers. The show is ramping up to this one final confrontation, and when they all arrived, we were halfway through the last episode. And by that point, we just kind of shot through the finish line. Obviously, they knew they were going to do a second season, but it does just feel a little unsatisfying. Overall though, I can see it slotting in about here. I could do this with any show or movie if I ever want to, and now you can too. I don't really know why you would. Taking a step back and looking at this graph makes me realize how insane or mentally ill I look. So I left a blank in the description. Anyway, what's your favorite video game film or show? I'd like some recommendations, because it's always nice to have more things to watch. Okay, enough of this baby talk. I'm gonna go watch a real movie for real adults. 2009's Gamer. Because it's really good.